Yeah, as opposed to listened. Excuse me.
Why would you tell people that we're having technical problems
I don't
downtown?
because I'm not a
That's one of the
professional.
first rules of community radio is you just keep going.
I'm an amateur. Michael Peshkin, welcome. Little did you know having lunch at the Heartland last week would involve you getting up early on Saturday and talking on the radio.
Short timeline on this,
So
right?
that for the rest of your life you can watch yourself on YouTube.
Well, I was completely fascinated to hear of the project that you've been a founder of, the founder of. Talk to us about the Student Vote Project.
So Student Vote Project started really 4 years ago, just before the 2008 election, with a student group that I was associated with, starting to do voter registration on the campus of Northwestern University. But what we quickly found out was that 3/4 of our students aren't even from Illinois, and most of the students, whether they're from Illinois or not from Illinois, want to vote back in their home community rather than in Evanston or in Cook County. They just feel more connected there. Some of them were from swing states and particularly wanted to vote in those swing states. And so we set up to do something really quite unique, which was to offer students the choice of voting locally or the choice of registering and voting absentee back in wherever they were from. Most of the students took that second choice. And so studentvoteproject.org now is a packaging up of what we developed so that a student group right now on a college campus could get a voter registration drive organized in a matter of days and start registering their fellow students, giving them their legal choice of where do you want to register, where do you want to vote.
How complicated is it for people from other states to be able to register in their home state?
Once they've left their home
Once
state.
they've left their home
They're
state.
living in Evanston, whether in a dorm or an apartment at Northwestern University.
There's two kinds of complications. One is just every single state, and in some cases every county, has their own rules. So the service that we're providing to voter drive organizers is, here's all the rules, here's all the forms. You know, that makes that kind of logistic problem not so bad. But there's another kind of problem too, which is more serious, of the sort that David was speaking of, which is rules that have been set up by some of these states to make it specifically difficult for students to register.
And name the top violators in your mind.
Okay, there are lots of top
States.
violators. Florida is certainly one of them. Texas is one of them. But I'll give you two very local examples. Suppose you are a student from Michigan and you've decided to go to school in Wisconsin. So you leave Michigan, and like all of us, you didn't register to vote before you left. You start thinking about it a few weeks before the election. So there you are, and you run into studentvoteproject.org registrars at where you are in Madison. And they say, you know, there's a problem with Michigan. In Michigan, if you register by mail, sending in a copy of your Michigan driver's license, proof of residence, all that stuff, they won't let you vote by mail. If you register in person, you can vote by mail, but if you register by mail, you can only vote in person. So you're going to have to go back to Michigan to vote in 3 weeks. Now, you've just come to college. You've never voted before. This is your first election and your first chance to sort of begin to think of yourself as a voter, you know, a participant in the political process, and your home state has just said, we're making this hard for you. So you say, oh, well, look, I'll register in Wisconsin. I'll use my Wisconsin student ID that shows that I'm also a resident here. I'll just register locally, even though I'd really rather register in Michigan. Well, guess what? Wisconsin doesn't welcome that, right? You're not qualified to vote. You don't have the proper identification for proof of residency in Wisconsin, and you can't vote in your home state of Michigan.
Why will Wisconsin not let them vote? What is the rule?
The rule is that a student ID, even though it does prove residence, isn't valid unless it has an expiration date. The student IDs from the University of Wisconsin system at this point don't carry an expiration date visibly printed on them, and so the state is attempting to decline to use them for that purpose.
Wow.
Michael Peshkin, how widespread is the Student Vote Project? I mean, how many other schools are you active in besides Northwestern?
Right now, well, there were a number in 2008 who did this program. It wasn't quite as well formulated as it is now, about half a dozen. Notably, Northwestern had the the largest number. NYU had a lot, Stanford, University of Chicago, Loyola had quite a few. And right now, just as we speak, some schools have summer orientation, and so I'm associated with our Center for Civic Engagement at Northwestern University, of which you, in fact, Katie, are a community board member.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
It's true. And that group is doing a sort of another version of Student Vote Project right now at some schools where students are starting to arrive already. So that project we call U-Vote Project as opposed to Student Vote Project, very parallel project, but it's done by the Center for Civic Engagement rather than by independent student groups as I am targeting. So they are right now running voter registration programs at UIC and at Concordia and at Dominican, and those are ones that have summer students coming in for orientation. Come fall, we'll be doing the same program at Shenandoah University in Virginia and Washington University. And hopefully that program is expected to grow over the years. The idea there is that every school really ought to, when their students come to school every year, whether it's an election year or not, offer their students coming in, do you want to register here? Do you want to register where the state or community you came from? When Northwestern did this a year ago with our incoming students, this is really a remarkable statistic. Now this was 2011. There's no upcoming election. There isn't all that election fever.
Right.
But we just talked to every single incoming student, said, where do you want to register to vote? 90% of them wanted to register to vote. That's like an unheard of level of registration, participation. And it all is because they're offered a convenient opportunity.
Sure.
Students will register, students will vote.
And out of that number, what percentage wanted to register at their home?
About 3/4 of them wanted to register back home in their home state or even in their home community in Illinois.
To me, that's also a good statistic, meaning that they've got some connection and interest in what's governing their home place, or maybe they even invested in a campaign of some sort.
Right.
Let me
That's
ask you,
pretty
Mike. Is this something that you could have the university itself do when the kids register?
Yes, absolutely. That's the distinction between U-Vote Project, which is trying to do exactly that, working with the college administrations to make coming to college and registering to vote just be a natural, this is the right age, right? So every student who goes to college ought to be offered that opportunity. And for that matter, even though you see the various regulations going in to try to make it harder, there's actually an act of Congress called the Higher Education Act, which mandates that colleges help their students register to vote.
Is that U-Vote, Y-O-U?
It's U as in university, but it works either way.
Computer spelling?
Right.
Okay.
So that's the do it as part of the university project, and my project, studentvoteproject.org, is really more of a once every 4-year thing where you hope that student groups will get all involved and excited on these quadrennial elections. But they can hit nearly everybody.
Well, I still want to go back to the thing about having the universities do this offering to the students about voting. Is this something that, how hard will it be for you to get this into the entire state university system here in Illinois?
Well, of course, we have much broader goals than that, right?
Well,
we'd like this to be at every
No, I know that. I'm just trying to figure out how massive it can be this fall. How many universities around the country might actually have this, afford this opportunity?
Getting this program going at a university and integrating it into their operations during orientation week, that's quite a bit of interaction between our staff and their staff. They really have to replan how they do orientation. The way it worked quite so dramatically well for us at Northwestern was we had all these students lined up getting their ID photograph. And it turns out when you are in a line and you're just like marking time waiting to get to the front of the line, you will do anything So, that's offered to you, right? So you come along and you say, would you like to register to vote? And they, of course.
Sure, what else am I going to do?
So, but to your question, it is more complicated and takes more planning to get this kind of thing going as part of the university's own orientation program. The thing that's very easy and quick to do is for a student group. This is something a student group can do in a matter of days. They either have an existing student group, it can be partisan, it can be nonpartisan, it can be one that just a bunch of students come together and say, let's do this. The studentvoteproject.org website has everything you need to do, everything you need to gather, where to do it, here are the forms, here are the rules, so that you can get a student-led voter registration drive up and running in a matter of days. And it's really important, too, that this is not an email. Every student gets a bunch of emails that say, you should really register to vote, and you know where 90% of those emails go. Nobody ever does anything that comes to them by email. But when they see their own classmates sitting at tables, working the lines, out there with the clipboards, saying, would you like to register to vote? Where would you like to register to vote? That works really well.
Who are your best allies in this? League of Women Voters to help you out at all?
I'm reaching out to lots of organizations to see if they would like to
join in.
But it's really kind of, this kind of has to be student initiated, because it's really the student energy that makes this work.
Well, and also to keep the purity of nonpartisanship.
It is the student groups that have done this so far, most of them have been nonpartisan.
Yeah.
But it's not really necessary that they be nonpartisan, because a lot of voter registration in the United States is in fact done by campaign-associated groups. There's nothing wrong with that, and our website invites both partisan and nonpartisan
unless, of course,
groups.
you're in a toxic partisan environment like we are now, and everything gets pointed at or accused of, or laws start getting passed to keep people from freedom to register.
Yeah, so certainly the website gives very stern instructions. If you are a partisan group, you have to behave very, very civic while you're doing voter registration.
Sure.
You shouldn't be wearing your candidate's buttons. You shouldn't be giving any sense of a hostile atmosphere for somebody who might want to register but not share your evident political opinions.
Sure.
Michael, I always like to know where people come from, and I'm curious to know where you grew up and how you acquired your interest in democracy and politics in general, civic engagement.
Well, I grew up actually, I was born about half a mile from where I live now. My parents lived in Evanston when I was born, and I've been very interested in the political process and in political participation. For a very long time, I've been working on various parts of voter registration for probably 20 years. I think I feel it just as Congress says, colleges have a responsibility to their students who have just arrived at the age of eligibility to vote. We really ought to be facilitating that. It's just part of of welcoming young people past the age of 18 into their responsibilities as political citizens.
Well, I'm really glad that you're out there doing it. I'd love to have you back closer to the election to bring us up to speed, like once school is just beginning, in case there's ways that our listening audience can assist and take part.
Well, if our listening audience knows any politically activated students anywhere and points them to studentvoteproject.org, and they pull together a few of their friends, this costs very, very little, can be self-supporting, goes together very quickly, and you can get an awful lot of students registered really, really quickly.
Thanks for coming on the
Great
show,
work,
Michael
Michael.
Peshkin, and that
Great
would
work.
be studentvoteproject.org.
Thanks for inviting me.
And
Yeah,
also,
we'll see you again.
You Vote Project. All right.